I've grown up going into companies as a CIO where it's not a blank canvas. Much of what there is legacy, and there is a drive, usually from the board or the executive team, to do something on a digital footing, but not to a point where they understand just exactly what that may mean or what that might look like. And I've been lucky enough in most of the jobs that I've had to be given that envelope to push the digital agenda in companies where the culture, the value system, even the way they operate is actually the opposite to the digital endeavor you really want to push through on. So I'm going to talk through some of the lessons I learned, some of what I've done and have passed on to the informers and the BTs of this world around what it really means to bring your people along a digital journey when you're doing a transformation that requires fairly significant upskilling. And I do think there is a tendency, I think, as people tackle this in the various corporates that they work in, to look at the tech and the business process first before looking at some of the fundamentals. And for me, the fundamental around digital upskilling is it needs a pretty robust end-to-end people plan from the board right the way down to the coalface. There needs to be skills in each of those forums, the board and the executive team. And as you get lower down into the organization, those skills need to be more broad spectrum across the piece. And that often means, in part, a change in culture. It sometimes means a change, or certainly a review, in the values. So I'm used to that type of process. And certainly, if I think about my last role as a group CIO at Centrica was known as an entity in the energy and services sector that had a lot of legacy. And my job, the simple remit I was given by the board, was to digitize everything, which is a great remit for a CIO to have. But you do recognize that the anchor chain, the one that's probably going to take the longest, isn't going to be making the right choices around the tech, using the out-of-the-box type processes that may come with that tech. It's going to be bringing the people along on that journey so that they can use the digital assets that you're choosing to go with or choosing to build. And often you're moving an organization that is well versed in waterfall coding and delivery, as opposed to any type of agile or scrum team or DevOps type structure. So there's a much more meatier type process you have to map out to bring people along that journey. And you can't avoid the fact that some people that are running the legacy, realizing that is coming to a conclusion, will be looking either to jump ship, if we're being perfectly honest, to leave the corporate and go somewhere else where perhaps the skills they've got may be useful, when in actual fact what you're probably best trying to do is keeping them and helping them traverse from the legacy onto the new, and then retaining them and training them further and further so they become more adept in what the future may bring. So I am well versed in sitting down with the Microsofts, the AWSs, the Salesforces, the leaders of those companies, and having a conversation that says, I want you to invest in a digital academy for my company. I am choosing some of your applications. I'm going to use some of those applications, and I want you to help me find people that we can train and become much more adept at using the applications than perhaps they may have been in the past. And I'll draw one example. It's a slightly unfair one, but certainly in Centrica, when I landed, there were a lot of Salesforce type platforms, all of different configuration, all of different software types. None of them were the same. None of them were shared. And the truth is, I didn't have one single person that was admin qualified, a week-long course on how best to use that from an administration point of view within the enterprise. So often we buy things off the shelf like we might do in a supermarket and try and work it out as we go along. And That's never the right way to do things. So I've never owned one, but I'm told that if you buy a Ferrari, you have to sign up for a driving course because they're not willing to let you have the Ferrari out of the factory until you can prove you can drive it. And I would argue it's a similar adage when you're using SaaS type solutions in the new world than it might be on the legacy solutions that you might be well versed in. So digital academies are a big part, I think, of how you solve that for your employees, and getting your major vendors, suppliers, and partners to play a part in that is pretty important. And I would argue you need to look at super users, those that are getting to an apex in using the digital solutions in whatever form they might be. If they're proving to get there quicker and they have an innate skill of passing some of that information on, and using them as digital champions or as super users is a pivotal part across the organization. Get them to be your flag bearers, get them to bring the rest of your employee base along on the particular digital solutions that you're looking to put in place. And then show as an employer, which I think my past employers have done, that you're in the game for the long run, that you have a robust people plan. It's a multi-year people plan where you're going to support in-place apprenticeships that might be digitally orientated, in the workplace, digital MSCs, and you're going to support people in the data science PhD agenda that they may have, because there's a reward for that in the corporate if they're willing to play a part in paying people for some of those important qualifications. And you can map that out pretty finitely and ensure that you have a retention process that sits there so the people you educate stay. And then fundamentally, line managers, the people that hopefully have grasped the digital agenda on your behalf, are ensuring that as they do their appraisals on each and every one of their people in their teams, that they're giving them due regard for the journey that they've traveled in terms of their training and in terms of how they've adapted. And they're also mapping out on a year-by-year basis what their next steps might be. And then the reward process, bonus process, whatever it might be the company uses, needs to reflect the journey of the individual as they go down that particular route. And then, of course, when you need additional voice and maybe transparency, setting up guilds that allow people to talk in their own right around what they might be working on in on the cloud, what they might be working on in relation to a particular code set, what they might be working on in terms of within their Scrum team, so people can learn. And you might run those in a lunch and learn type process. You might use them in any other type of endeavor across the corporate. But the most important thing is that they're run by the teams. They're not run by management. It's a place where the actual people that are doing the work can sort of let their hair down to a degree and talk about the pros and cons of some of what they're doing, and everyone can chip in and learn and comment and push the agenda forward. And management can often get invited to those guild type calls. I often did in Centrica, and they were a very good learning forum. But they're meant to be a forum where people that are actually at the coalface doing the work can let off a bit of steam in a constructive way and work through what they think is best practice, so everyone learns from one another as a consequence. And then last but not least, digital labs. I marvel at the fact that we don't often in corporates, and I can say that because I see it on a day-by-day basis, we don't often ask our customer what they want or what their experience is. So bringing the customer into a digital lab and asking them about their experience around a particular platform choice that you're looking to make, or an upgrade you're looking to make, as to how they feel about it. Was it intuitive enough? Was it clear what you needed to do? So you can learn from the customer. I think that's pretty important too. And certainly in Dentsu and in Centrica, we had digital labs where we brought the customer in, and the engineering teams could look and see and evaluate what the customer's saying in order to adapt what it is we were putting in front of the customer, either in the digital channels or on the web. There's a whole host of learning in that, but it's taken many years to bring that together. And that's indeed the the framework that's now being put in place in places like BT, who are now starting their digital transformation. And I hope that the people that are on the call, there may be some little cherry bits there that might be useful as they think about their own digital transformations.